So welcome everybody to the Lumina Spark Portrait and Discover You. So the plan, first of all, just to give you a little bit of context to understand Lumina Spark within the broader range of Lumina learning and where that fits. So we'll set the context to deepen your understanding about yourself. And really, as I was saying, I'm really excited, I'll reveal my age. At the age of 52, I keep thinking, okay, I've finally arrived. I know myself now, and I've grown and I've developed, and I find suddenly, no, I'm at stage one and there's still so much more to learn and grow. So I think wherever we're at any stage, there's always opportunity for growth. And there's some energetic portal that's opened up with COVID around an opportunity of really going inside when we are inside, so in terms of lockdown, and really opening up our heart space and the opportunity to say, who am I? How am I dealing right now? How am I showing up? What is my being? What is my essence? How come I am the way I am? And for me, Luminous Spark is very powerful to really give a beautiful nuanced lens to reflect back an aspect of that journey around who am I, what are my strengths, what have I been utilizing, activating. Maybe I've developed them over habits, over time, maybe they were innate within me, but let me be clear about them. And for those of you who have already received a portrait, you'll see that the language within it also really re-emphasizes that, yes, this is who I am. And I've got these amazing talents and skills, and I've got a language to tap into it, to speak about it, and then to celebrate it, and then to activate it and use them even more in other areas. So I think that there's not enough of tapping ourselves on the back or giving ourselves a hug and just acknowledging, yeah, I'm okay. I've developed, I'm here, I'm in this place, I'm okay. And, I have my little bell when I feel I've achieved something, however small it is, and I have my chimes that I use. Just different things to say, okay, good job, well done. And we can feed ourselves that way and be aware when we have these talents and skills and we use them well. Now, we also have derailers. So I call, when we look at the portrait, we look at it through three personas. So the underlying, which is a natural preference, who am I, my shoes of self. The everyday, the mask, the persona that we show to the world. So it could be a level of adaptation because now we've got to perform and show up. Could be as a mother when we get, or father as we get home, or it could be with our colleagues, or it could be as a facilitator coach. And then we have a third persona, which we call the overextended. And that's when we overuse a quality. And I kind of refer to that sometimes as the beast. So the underlying everyday as the beauty and the overextended as a beast. And within each of us, we have this beautiful dance of light and dark. And what I learn is not to push away the dark side, but to shine a light on it, to embrace it, to look at it and say, I see you. You are part of me as well. Now, to what extent do you serve me? And sometimes if I activate that with consciousness, it can be quite powerful. But if it's self-activated and then it overwhelms me and the behavior is in control and not myself, that's when it can be unuseful and it can impact us at our personal well-being level, our relationships, our effectiveness. So we need to understand both our strengths, our beauty, and our overextensions, our beast. Or it could just be a weak spot that we don't own but we want to develop. So there's a big part about understanding that. And then overall saying to inspire your growth journey in some way. So as we've said, that now's a real opportunity to go within, to look at ourselves from a different perspective, to look at what are my key strengths. So we can look at our strengths and our derailers and understand what is my beingness right now. There are other aspects of looking at where that comes from. I call it often going back to our beginnings, what's impacts us from our childhood, what limiting core beliefs do we have? But once again, we shine a light on these things, we can then integrate it and release the chains and make conscious choices. And then if you're not part of our community already, we would love you to join us. And hopefully part of today, I know this has been a series of webinars, and some of you have attended previous ones, some haven't. But if you are interested, then to speak to Lauren following this, we would love to engage with you. So just before we begin, if you don't mind, I always find huge value in breath, and really believe, as my friend and colleague Julie's on the line, that breath is everything. And especially now, if we can breathe more consciously and more frequently, as often as possible, we really can integrate our higher spiritual selves into our body physical selves, and then be more aligned at many levels. And sometimes our busyness takes us out of our body and into the doing and not the being. So may I ask or invite you, if you don't mind, just to sit back in your chair for a moment, to put your feet on the floor just so that you're grounded. Release your shoulders, get into your body, and just sit back. If your video is on and you want to turn it off, feel free, and turn it back on after the meditation. And just take a few moments, slowly close your eyes, and just go into your body and say hello. I know you. How are you doing? And focus on your breath, breathing in and just sighing out. And a really beautiful thing is having a conversation between your soul and your body, checking in with each other, recognizing there's two beautiful parts of ourselves. And when we can integrate them and work in alignment, is when magical things happen. And that's when we become really aligned to our core purpose and our values. So let's just take a few breaths in and release out. Whatever rhythm you like. Sometimes I breathe in for 5, expanding my lungs completely, hold for 5, and then out for 7. Let's just do at least one deep breath together and breathe in deeply. Hold, and when you're ready, release. And as this session is about looking at ourselves, if you can, reflect on yourself, your beingness, and just think about your talents and your skills, and what's enabled you to be you today, what's got you to where you are. Some of the gifts that you've been given, that's been bestowed upon you to enable you to be the person you are, the leader, the light worker, the coach, the friend, the child, the parent, whoever you are, just to think about some of those key talents and skills and just to be grateful. Just to say them, I am. Whether it's patience, organized, kind. Who are you that you can be grateful for? And just breathe in each of those qualities. And the key quality that really speaks loudly for you, that you feel most at peace with, that gives you the most joy, just say that one more time in your mind's eye. And take that and just take it to your heart, put your hand on your heart and just breathe it in. And when you're ready in your own time, you can come back into the room. And if you can, unmute yourself. A few people can just share that final word. So I will say, I am kind. Lauren, Julie, Rebecca, Michelle, Sharon. Let me hear from a couple of you.
I've got a comment on the chat from Natalie saying, I am resolved.
Amazing. Thank you, Natalie.
I am setting a good example to my children.
Amazing.
I am healing.
Thank you.
I am accepted.
Beautiful.
Another one from Carolina saying, I am calm.
Thank you. If you want to write it in the chat, feel free.
I feel beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. And you are inside and out. Thank you for sharing. It's very, very powerful to be able to own that.
I'm very, very grateful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jana. Wonderful that you're here. Thank you. So I'm going to now switch over to the Menti. And if you don't mind opening up your phone, menti.com, and you can add this code 8758546 and just answer this question. What are your needs for this session today? What is it that you'd particularly like out of it? And then we can manage the session accordingly. So thank you for this opening for us to get here and get present, and I'll step into my red energy and I'll make sure that we're focused so that we can really achieve your goals today. So it's menti.com, and then it will ask you for the number 8758546. And if you can add that. Okay. So someone is interested in the digital coach. Okay, so I'll give you a demo of that today as well. Or I'll put that in at the end. So the digital coach, just while people are adding in your points, it's a tool that we've just launched this week. More interest in the digital coach, that's okay. It's a very exciting tool because it really empowers an individual to deepen their own learning journey in terms of self-awareness at any time, depending on any issue they've got at any stage. So they can get their portrait, they can self-coach. The ideal is they would still have a one-to-one coaching session or attend a workshop and then dive deeper and continue the conversation through the digital smart coach, which is very interactive. And I'll show that to you. So I'm clearer view of how to interpret my portrait. I'd like to understand how I've changed over time and how this can benefit the many hats I'm wearing. Spend quality time with like-minded people. Beautiful. Me too. Coaching awareness. Increased awareness of how to dial up and down consciously. All starts with breath. And then choice. How to work more effectively with groups online. So I love Zoom and I use Menti, and Slido.com is always nice to get interactions, but more and more I find the chat itself can be really useful. And then using the annotate, I'll bring that in just to demo that for you, because that's also very powerful. Know as much as possible about coaching possibilities with Lumina, understanding trends in coaching. I'm not really going to focus on that today. Deepen the understanding of Lumina. how to manage disagreements with the profile results. Okay, I love that. So if you've got that in your portrait, then I'm going to ask you to share that so we can have a look at it. Discover, or if that's a question, just bring that up again so we can do that as part of the Q&A. Discover and learn more about Lumina and how I can utilize this to discover more about myself and how to best utilize support of others in their journey of discovery. Great. I'm excited about hearing about digital coach, designing my path. Great. Explore my purpose. So Julie and I have done some beautiful work around that. There's also some great books to access to really identify your purpose. I want to go into that now, but I won't because it's another full topic. I'd like to understand myself and how I can achieve what I want to achieve by understanding using my strengths, understanding my weaknesses, absolutely. A transformational guide and resilience coach. But Nicole, you're doing that with me already. Thank you. Relearn and connect with Lumina. How to effectively build relationships, learn, team spirit, working over digital tools, yeah. How to quiet the limiting beliefs and hear more of my empowering beliefs. I love that conversation, so please bring that up later. If we can include that, then that would be great. I won't answer that now, but it's again, we see it, it's there all the time, that limiting voice, the limiting beliefs, and we just say, I see you, and if it doesn't serve you, I see you, and you can leave. And then we step into our more empowering beliefs. See if it's got anything to offer first, and then we just let it go. Because it will, the more emphasis we put on it, it will keep being noisy. So we have to create new habits that serve us better. Okay, that's great. So there's a wonderful range, and I think that we're online in terms of what I planned today. So I'm going to go back to our presentation. But if there's anything else there on the chat there, Lauren, will you please share that?
Will do.
Okay. So can you see my slides?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. So just a bit of a background in terms of who is Lumina Learning. So we're a global organization, and we're right for the timing now. We really celebrate the uniqueness and the diversity of people. So with everything going on with Black Lives Matter, I think we really are the voice that says every person matters, and there's huge diversity within us, between us. Let's shine a light on it. Let's understand it. Let's embrace it. Let's ask the questions and reach out with our hands. Wake up organizations to honor, and I think this is happening. For me, this is one of the purposes of COVID, to get everyone to see that we are not human doings anymore. We are in fact human beings. People are asking that question, how are you? And they're really listening now more than ever before. So we've been talking about moving from a human being to human doings from our launch in 2009. And I feel that the timing is now that people are waking up to this message. We look at deep connectedness. So we really work on deep connectedness within, and then with others, between others, within teams and throughout organizations. I was just working last week with a team where there were 5 teams within one border team, each highly competitive and siloed. And after working with one day with the leadership, one day with the whole team, they have completely shifted. They are celebrating each other. They are connected. They have created this new kind of team values, and they really are committed to now seeing and working together. And that was just a one-day process. And with the value and the process of Lumina, it just kind of unlocks conversation so people can be honest on it. They see things differently. They shift their paradigms and they say, okay, I've got it. I own it. I'm accountable. Let's speak and let's connect. We're effortlessly virtual. So everything that we do is online. You'll see, as I've written at the bottom here, we've got the Splash app, the Team Viewer, the Spark Coach. We've converted all our programs, work really well online. Our Spark qualification, there's a lot of gamification in there. To any of you who have done the virtual qualification, it's a really exciting process. We've had amazing feedback. We provide instant value, and I pray that each of you will have some level of insight or value today. Enable lifelong learning. So it's what you have in the moment, but recognize, we are always growing. Wherever we're at, there's always another lens to see ourselves differently. Our Spark coach is giving a tool and offer to say, continue your journey. And we want to support that. And a lot of our languaging is around how can we support that lifelong learning journey. And it's really about holistic psychometrics. The fact that we talk about embracing paradox. We measure both ends of the continuum. It's not either or, it's both. What happens when I am extreme on empathetic and logical? What happens if I'm both conceptual and practical? If I'm introverted and extroverted? Or I'm low on both? Or I move between the three personas? I may be very high on logical, but maybe I'm high underlying, very low every day, and very high overextended. What does that look like? So it's the patterns and the nuance that Lumina gives that's made it my absolute preferred tool and way of working in terms of coaching. So there's so many impacts at many levels. These are the key areas that I, as an organizational psychologist, I love proving impact. And we prove impact at these 7 levels specifically. So absolutely self-awareness, resilience, connection, accountability, moving from victim orientation to it's actually all up to me. I'm accountable for my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. I'm the author of my own book. What's my next chapter? What does it look like? We have amazing tools around innovation, very exciting. So in terms of co-creating the new normal in the future and really stepping up and activating the creativity, we've created a fantastic model around that. Employee engagement. So after our sessions, we literally see everybody spinning. We're activating potential. We're switching people on. So they're not just brilliant everywhere but outside work. They become brilliant in work. And of course, that's the critical element of that is going to be trust, that we can help leaders create environments that are trusted, trusting, and that's a key formula to create engagement as well. And ultimately, performance, that people shift significantly around that. For today, we are absolutely focusing on self-awareness. We're answering that big question of who am I? So we have several solutions. Just going to make the screen small on the side. Probably can't see the pictures there. Okay, so Spark, understand yourself. We use it to connect with others. It's Lumina Spark is our foundational tool, 24 Spark qualities at 3 personas, and it can impact all levels of growth and understanding. But specifically, let's look at understanding self, others, and connection, communication. We have Lumina Team, where we align team behaviors to strategy. We have Lumina Select for assessment, selection, onboarding. Lumina Emotion, which I also use for coaching. So this could be another session. You can imagine an iceberg. Above the waterline is Lumina Spark, the observable behaviors, underlying, everyday, overextended. Beneath the waterline is Lumina Emotion. What are the motivators and drivers of these observable behaviors? And Lumina Emotion looks at emotional stability or neuroticism in terms of the big 5. So we develop emotional intelligence and resilience. Lumina Leader, it's also a 360 tool, is about building competence to lead into the future. And then we have a fantastic sales tool, which is critical now for influencing and selling in organizations. It's become very popular right now. So those are some of our solutions, and we are specifically honing into Spark. So when you complete, if you haven't yet, the questionnaire, we're measuring 24 qualities here on the side at 3 persona levels. Because it looks quite complex when you look at that initially, we aggregate it to 24 qualities, to 8 aspects, and then to 4 colors. And there are value at each level. But again, any 4-quadrant tool is going to be a little bit crude because it's missing out the nuance of who people are. So for example, here you could see someone may be 1% yellow, but when you come to their qualities, they may have, 90% in imaginative. So there may be one quality within at a 4 color that actually they're very high on an everyday level. So you need to know the depth. And that's a danger working at 4. You can't say you're dominant blue, therefore when you're overextended, you're always going to be withdrawn. Dominant red, you know, which is about focusing and driving on results, you're always going to be aggressive, because you may be competent in these areas at the everyday level, use it with emotional intelligence, and when you overextend, you become somewhere else. So that's why you need this real nuance. So for me, everything is in this page, but there is still value at the 4 colors. It's about building rapport. What mountaintop are you on? 8 aspects. The splash is so powerful for conversations and engagement when people start comparing and contrasting their splashes over each other, tells them how they can improve their relationships. I'd recommend that you use that as well. So in fact, I'll just share with you this quote, and then we'll get you to dive right into the portrait. But if there's any questions at this point before we go into the portrait, please write them in the chat or speak out. So all of our work is based on Viktor Frankl, and that's why as a quote we put it on the front cover. As a practitioner, you always have your own quotes, as you know. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So if we can just breathe that in, and if you can just write on the chat or speak it out, what does this mean for you? What's possible if there is a space that we just don't see or feel? You know, what's possible if we can access that space? What's possible for ourselves? What's possible for the world? So Lauren, will you share any comments that are coming up?
Yes, I will. From Isabella has said everything. Natalie has said so much more control so far.
Yeah, and absolutely, and to follow through on what Natalie said, the control, because we can move, once we access the space, we can move from an unconscious reaction to a conscious response. Responsibility, ability to respond. We are in control. That's a really good summary word. We, again, authors of our book, how do I want to show up? I'm not a victim to my habits and the habits which is reflected in my personality today. I can work out, okay, if I'm clear, this is my purpose. This is what I stand by. This is what I live for. This is why I'm here. These are my core values. Am I being in alignment with my core values if I overextend and become aggressive, or I withdraw and I'm distant, or I give my power away by not setting boundaries, or I talk too much and I don't listen? Is that really who I am? Is that aligned to how I want to show up, the legacy I want to leave? And if it doesn't, well, then I can change it. Neuroplasticity in the brain. We know that with all the new neuroscience that's available now, we understand the brain. We know that these different pathways can be created just with new habits and practice. Another thing which is so exciting is this movement, as they've now found, they see the triggers in the pathways in our brain between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic brain. And we know that in the pre-executive brain, the prefrontal cortex is where all the thinking, the logic happens. And that's where in our calm state, where we can agree to disagree, we can give feedback to each other, we can engage around a common purpose. But for that to be in place, there needs to be trust. There needs to be listening. And where there isn't trust is when we literally flip. It's amygdala hijacking, where there's no trust, and we become protective. We're in that place of fear because we're always looking out for threat. Amygdala gets activated, our prefrontal cortex flips up, and our limbic brain comes out. And then we can be very reactive and emotional, and that's where we can lack control. I don't know if you can see my hand here, maybe if you put me on speaker view, but it's literally, it's about coming back all the time. How do I return? If I flip, how do I come back? So this is about accessing the space. We can just even start to flip. We can see there's a space here, and then we come back. And we have a beautiful process called Journey to Composure, where we work on overextensions. And I will keep my eye on the time, and if we get a chance to do a brief one, then we will. But ultimately, this is what we call, you know, to access this space is about becoming emotionally intelligent, emotionally agile. And we talk about 4 stages to get there. We need to have self-awareness, we need to be aware of others, we then need to manage our emotions, and then we take meaningful action aligned to our purpose and our values. So I love this analogy. Lived for 20 years in Cape Town, on my way back eventually at some point, I hope. But I just used to always look at these beautiful 12 apostles, and I know Natalie enjoys all the time, and Sharon would as well. But if you think about each of us standing on our own mountaintop, and that's our viewing range, it's so fixed, it's so focused, that of course, if we are all 8.5 billion of us have such different viewing ranges, such different perceptions and realities, we will clash. I'm right, you're wrong. This has to be true. Emotional intelligence is moving to a place of there is no truth. There's no right or wrong, there's just difference, different realities. This is my thinking, what's your thinking? Let me get off my mountaintop, let me travel up yours. So it's all about the richness in the conversation. It's all about learning that there's no goodness in righteousness, in being right. As soon as we think, oh, well, I'm right, or as soon as we have a judgment, they're stupid, they're incompetent, why didn't they? We need to breathe, access our spiritual higher selves, release that judgment, and get into a space of, talk to me, explain to me, why did you do that? I'm not quite clear, it didn't make sense to me, but I'd like to understand. So the conversation releases a whole new world of connectivity, of listening. Now, 8.5 billion people, that's quite difficult. So we all do know, thankfully, there's also a lot of commonality amongst human beings. And it's been done from Plato, Hippocrates' time. And we use color for Lumina to tap into the different mountaintops. What color? Where are you standing? Where are you coming from? So I'm actually going to go into the portrait now. So can I just, if I stop my share for a second, can I just get a sense, if you can just put your thumbs up if you have your portraits. I know how many of you will be referring to your portrait. And I'm going to start with Craig, who's graciously given me permission to use his as an example, just to have a sense of how many have portraits. So you'll find the thumbs up under reactions. Okay, Rebecca, I know you have one, thank you. Sharon has one, Elaine has one. Okay. Stuart, welcome, you made it. So we have a fabulous picture of Stuart Desson right here in his youthful, was that a Beatles day or something? Fab. That's our very refined looking CEO.
The 18-year-old version, yeah.
Welcome, welcome. So any great, pertinent, difficult questions, start designing them right now because Stuart's online. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to pull up a couple of portraits here. I'll share my screen. Thanks for being with us, Stuart. So just to show you two contrasting examples, we've got Craig's here and Sharon's, and you'll see on your front page is this beautiful wave. So it's giving us an indication of what mountaintop do you stand on. And we'll see here a contrast where Craig stands on the blue leading into red, so definitely around the thinking energy, but both introverted and extroverted at the 4 color. Whereas Sharon, they share in the red around extroverted thinking, getting the job done, logical, competitive, can be tough, speak their mind. But Sharon's moving more into the yellow, which is the opposite of the blue. So the yellow is activating our creativity, our conceptual problem-solving mind. They can be quite sociable and engaging, demonstrative. And opposite to that would be the blue, which is the more internal world of looking at process, objectivity, data, evidence. And we have here, perhaps a possibility if you were to be together, would be looking at both wanting to maybe control with the red energy, but from being led by the opposites of the blue and the yellow. So we look at the 4, but very quickly what we do is we have this beautiful, what we call word cloud, to say that we are much, much more than 4 colors. And as I mentioned earlier, we have this beautiful nuance of the 24 qualities at 3 persona levels. Now this is still an average of the 3 personas, so it's not giving us yet the full nuance, we'll come to that. But what's really interesting at the very beginning, you can say, gosh, are much more than 4. So for Craig, yes, there's more red and blue, so it's aligned to your dominant, the logical, purposeful red and the reliable, practical, evidence-based. For Sharon, what we can see is hers was red, yellow on the first page, on her front page in terms of mountaintop. But if we just went with that, we would be negating a whole aspect of who she is. And we can see reliable, a blue quality, is big and bold right in the center of her word cloud. The bigger and the bolder, the more we've claimed that quality. And she also has some empathetic and collaborative. So we are often a combination of all qualities at different levels in different ways. And that's why Luminous Spark is, for me, the most powerful tool for coaching. I haven't touched any other tool, and I've been in this profession now for 30 years of working with different tools. But because of that nuance of the 3 personas and the movement and the journey you can go on, it's exceptionally powerful. So I'm going to now, I'll move across just to Craig's, just so we've got one, so it's less confusing. And then Sharon, we may come back to yours later. So thank you for, I'll just minimize yours for now. And I'll make Craig's a little bit bigger here now. So just if you, many of you have got your portraits there, so you can follow through with me. So I'm going to make that a bit bigger. I'll just give it to me on 2 pages. Okay, so it starts off with an introduction and then it's got an inner spark. So your inner spark is a summary of your whole portrait. So I really recommend that you read that first, and even in PDF you can highlight key sentences that are really relevant for you. So Craig, were you able to identify a couple of sentences here or phrases that most describe, that most resonated with you? Maybe you could just read one of them out for us.
Yes, so what stood out for me is the logical thinking. Yeah, that's basically, as I went through the inner spark from start to end, that was the thing that stood out the most, and being practical.
Okay, and is there any specific phrase in here that you think describes you well?
I would say the one that stood out was definitely understanding the underlying logic involvement in the formulation. So on the left-hand side, in a spark, the second line down from the top.
Okay, so you're already satisfied accepting a solution until you understand the underlying logic involved in its formulation. So you really need to understand the facts, the data, the evidence behind a solution.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So what we'd encourage you here, if there are any statements that you do feel this definitely is not me, doesn't resonate, in case it's a blind spot, ask someone who knows you well. If you ask a few people and they agree, then by all means cross it out and ignore it. But just test it out first, because as they say, the more we resist, perhaps the more light we need to focus on it. So then it gives you a summary of your strengths and potential weaknesses, and then takes you to the 4 colors. So as I mentioned earlier, so here you can see your dominancy of the red blue is very strong at 99% for both, so you move between them equally. But here, Craig, we're seeing 38 and 35% for green and yellow is quite significant, because it's saying now that you definitely have access to qualities within your green and yellow. So I think many of you are familiar with our definition, but very high level, we talk about 4 color archetypes. So the conscientious blue archetype is incorporating 3 kind of aspects that we'll come to. So in the center, it's down to earth, and then it's also introversion, and then discipline driven. And some of the qualities around that would be reliable, structured, observing, evidence-based, cautious, practical, observing, measured. The commanding archetype is about being outcome focused, focusing on the task, we've got to get it done. So it's outcome focused, tough, competitive, logical, but it's also tapping into the extroversion qualities of taking charge and being demonstrative, sociable. And then at the bottom, it would lead into some of the aspects of discipline driven. The green is what we call the empowering archetype. So this is where we're really embracing others, listening, seeking out harmony, accommodating, collaborative, the intimacy of really listening and having one-to-one conversations. So it's being much more people-focused. They can also be inspiration-driven and introverted, so there's a range. So at this stage, we don't know exactly what form these colors take. It could be anything around 3 aspects and around the range of 7 different qualities. And then finally, we have the inspiring yellow archetype. So this is the out there, sociable, creative, what we call the big picture orientated. They can be quite strategic and visionary, out there catching the butterfly, wanting to solve the problems, looking out the box. So, and of course, there's an overextended to each of these, which I won't go into now just because of time. Then we move to the 8 aspects. Now, this is where it really comes to life with the Lumina Splash app. So it says here Google Play or the App Store, and you'll see this icon of this splash. I've demonstrated to those of you being with me at the other webinars, you can see how you can overlay this and compare and contrast it with somebody else. So all you do is you go to the back of the very back of the portrait is a QR code. If I just go there quickly. And once you've uploaded the Lumina Splash, it says, do you have a camera? You say yes. Do you have a splash to scan? You say yes, and then you just hold your phone against this QR code at the back of your portrait, and it will eat up your whole portrait. Now, the magic of doing that is that then you can also access the 3 personas. So you get a splash with the underlying everyday and overextended persona. So you already get into the nuance of saying, how do I show up at these 3 persona levels? And you can do that at the compare and contrast stage as well. So really recommend that you would do that. So at this stage, we're now building on Craig's portrait, and you can see here, he really owns all 3 aspects of the blue and the red. It's not just one aspect. So when you look at your splash, you may find if you've got high red, you're really high outcome focused, but you're low extroverted and discipline driven. Craig owns all 3 aspects, and all 3 aspects for the blue as well, and lower on the other side. So we know we can rely on Craig to get the job done efficiently and well, and he's going to really analyze it and think about it and make sure that he delivers to his word around discipline driven. So if we wanted to unpack that a little bit more, we can look at the next page here, because it's got the 4 colors percentage. So you could find your 50% blue, red, but you have no outcome focus, but all your focus is in discipline driven and extroverted. And on this page, it actually tells you exactly what form does your red, yellow, blue, green take? What are your percentages? Where does it come from? So we can see here for your green, for example, 38%, well, it is in your people focus, but we don't yet know at the persona level. So it's asking us more questions, but we do see here that the spread of Craig's. So now we access the 24 qualities. The blocks are your least claimed quality. I don't claim this. I don't see these in myself. And the stars, my most claimed. Now, really interesting here, Craig, is yours are completely opposite, as you could see from your beautiful splash. So, you know, and it's never about necessarily wanting to be high in all areas. We're not looking to be jack of all trades, master of none. So having nuances can be really effective. These are my gifts. These are my talents. You know, I am logical, purposeful, reliable, practical, evidence-based. You can count on me. I deliver, and I think, and I reflect, and this is going to work. What you're not going to get from me necessarily is extroverted, proactive sociability, thinking out the box, maybe being more flexible and adaptable is harder because I really like to deliver to my word. But saying that, I know that I can't say that. I'm just telling you what this page reflects me, because what I may find is even if these are Craig's least qualities, it could be at the 1 persona level that he's very high, either underlying or everyday. We don't know yet. So the beauty of the portraits are that you can customize them to tell the story that you want to tell. It's like layers of the onion, or turning the pages of the book. So for me, I like a little bit of a teaser. I start off around you see this, the wave on the first page. Then you look at the 4 colors, then the 8 aspects. They're all asking more questions. I want to understand a bit more. I'm moving, you know, I come to these 24 qualities, and then I want to say, well, okay, what level? Is there anything of interest for me here? What do I want to inquire deeply into? And then I come into the 3 personas, and it's only going to be really, I'm going to just flip to that page now when I come here, that I really have all the answers, or at least all the questions, all the good questions to ask. So I'm going to flip back for a moment to my slide. So I just want to introduce you on this page just to the 3 personas. So just as a potential summary, because this is where we're going to access the richness now of the portrait. So your underlying is your shoes of self. Caught off guard, how would you be? What is your natural way of being? You in your flow, natural preference, what you enjoy when you are inspired and highly motivated. So we call it your being. Now, you may demonstrate this at work. You may work with a team of people that you really just are so aligned to. You're so connected. You can just be yourself. You can all just relate. You think about the picture of the brain. You're all in your prefrontal cortex. You're all giving each other ideas, inspired, giving feedback. You're making mistakes and saying, right, great mistake. What's the learning from that? It's not necessarily that people are your underlying self at home. I know for me, I'm most of my flow when I'm with, you know, people, when I'm coaching and facilitating. I feel most aligned because it's so aligned to my core purpose. And often I come home and I know I need to put on more of my everyday, because I've got to be more adapted. Okay, I know how to be a mother, but I've got to do this consciously. It's not natural to me. I mean, it's natural to love and hug and be with my kids, which I adore, but it's an adapted self. You can hear my guilt coming through here, so I'm trying to say, yes, it is within me. But your everyday persona is your adapted self. Others may see this in you. You may be consciously putting on this persona to suit your work environment. So I call it your doing. So you're underlying your being, your everyday is your doing. And it could be something maybe, the value of these 2 personas is really in the pattern. So the underlying gives you the context to understand your everyday. So if you can write in the chat, what do you think it could mean if you're high underlying and high everyday?
Nicole, while we're waiting for responses, Sterner has asked, can the underlying persona change?
Very good question, Sterner. So I call it, I think it's the context, because it tells us fundamentally where we're coming from. But if you look at this definition, it's measuring, and the questions in the questionnaire is very much around what do you enjoy, what do you prefer. So it does depend on the intensity, but in terms of the level, the score. But if you have been consciously developing an underlying, so, you know, maybe over time because your environment demands it from you. So for example, you really need to be more reliable, but your underlying is 5, your underlying is 5, and maybe your everyday is also low, and you've been pushing up your everyday because you've got to deliver, you've got to be your word. Now, if you do that over many, many years, eventually your underlying could get higher because you can see you experience value from it. It will take longer, but if one actually develops it over time and then really enjoys it, it may become them. And I have seen people change when they're in work environments over many years, whereby their personas can shift, but it takes a long time. I know for me, I've been looking on developing some characteristics and qualities like structured. I really feel like I'm so much more structured, you know, going back 10 years, and I've put so many actions in place, and now this time my portrait's going to be different. And I'm still at bloody 5%, and I'm sure I should be higher, but that's because it's not my natural preference, and I do it consciously. So I do it every day, but it's not my preference. So it depends on the level, depends how much energy, effort. It can change if you embrace it and you really shift and start enjoying it, but it's harder. So it's kind of telling us. So if you're high underlying, high everyday, you naturally enjoy it. Yeah, there's alignment, there's congruence between your natural and your actual work environment. You are what you want to be, you're where you want to be, natural for you. So you're in flow actually. What does it mean, do you think, if your underlying is low, but your everyday is high? What could that be? And what could that tell you in the work environment? Any feedback? Anything on the chat, Lauren?
Oh yes, Christina has just written in here, putting on a front could get tiring.
Very good, Christina. That's
beautiful. I said you have to work hard to show up like that.
Great. So it's showing effort. And it's not natural for me, but hey, I need to do it. So for me, there's also a part of like, congratulations. This isn't who I am, but I'm doing it. And sometimes we can, you know, it takes effort, but when we see the reward and we see the value, we could also see it as growth, that we're moving into our becoming. This isn't natural for me, but I'm embracing it, I'm integrating it, and I need this. There's value. So it depends, you know, if it's gone again from 5 to 10, it's hard effort. But if it's gone up to 50, 60, 70, 80, then we're integrating it. It's like from the unconscious incompetence, you know, that pyramid, unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and then finally unconscious competence, where it's a new habit. So the percentages kind of give you an indication of what level of ease and effort is needed. What level of competence do you have in demonstrating it? So final question, what does it mean if you're high underlying and low every day? Feel free to unmute and share. Love to hear your voices.
Quick comment from the couple of comments from the chat, Nicole. Christina says holding back. Isabella says not using strengths. I think that's strengths. And Kamala saying not fully utilizing yourself.
Okay, brilliant. Absolutely. So there's a level of suppression. Again, the question is it conscious or unconscious? So if you're conscious, you could consciously be withdrawing it because you want to work on the opposite side. So you don't want to do both. You know, I want to be less takes charge and tough. So I'm really working on my, maybe my intimate, which is my listening. Maybe I'm really working on my empathy. So in order to do that, I'm pulling down on the other side. Or it could be that I don't even know that I'm doing that and I'm actually negating a true part of myself. What I find in leaders, you know, a lot is they're very high often on sociability. They're one of the inspiring yellow archetype qualities. So high sociable, but then low every day. And when we discuss it, they say, you know, there's just no time. Working long hours, pushing back. I don't have time to express that. Or they're very high on the red and the blue qualities, and they're suppressing a lot of their big picture, innovative, conceptual qualities. But once we draw, this is all actually about drawing light. It's just about having awareness. Once we have awareness, we then have choice. And when we see it in a picture, somehow everything changes. And that's the power of these graphs, especially when you do it at the team mandala level and you see that movement of the team dynamic against the three personas. And they say, oh, okay, so we've been constantly saying we care about our employees, we're innovative, we're all these things, but actually we're all down the bottom with our blue-red qualities and none of us are actually displaying being collaborative. We say it beautifully, but we don't do it. And suddenly they see it in this picture and then they own it and then they're willing to make those changes. So it's very powerful. And then the final one is when we overdo it. Our overextended persona, your less conscious triggered self. Can be when we're stressed, tired. It could also be it's the only way that you know how to do it. We just don't have competence in it. How do you react maybe to unexpected events? But as I mentioned earlier, it all depends around whether we're using it consciously or unconsciously. Does the behavior take over? Do we just get triggered? Bam, someone gives us a certain look. It triggers a core value of ours. So for me, it could be, you know, kindness is a core value. And if someone shows a lack of kindness, it creates outrage in me and I can flip. Now, obviously I've been working on this for many years and I feel myself, first of all, it's in my heart rate and then in my mind, how could they, how's it possible? Where's your heart? Be kind. And as soon as I hear my inner voice and my heart rate beating, I know I've got to breathe, I've got to calm down, recenter myself, be in the listening of the other. But otherwise, I can go right into my takes charge to controlling, or my tough to seeks conflict, which I also own, gets triggered by the value of kindness, and I can go bam. And I don't want to be that person, but that's part of my beast. I own that. That's in me. And now over the years, my kids say they'll say they hardly ever see me get angry. They see me breathing a lot, but I still own that. That's still that control takes charge. And Stuart can vouch for that, I'm sure. Don't talk about it now. But that's in me. But it's about coming back, because I want to access that space in between and not trigger into my overextended. It doesn't serve me. So what is it that serves, what doesn't? There will be times where being controlling can serve, but then do I do it consciously and use it? It doesn't have the same impact or same kind of intensity because we're in control of it. Okay. So we are now moving up. I'm going to flip back in a moment to yours, Craig. But what place we want to be is we want to get to this 24 quality page where we look at your 24 qualities against these 3 personas. So you can see we've looked at the 4 color archetype, the 8 aspects, and now we've got all 24 qualities showing up. There's a lot of information, but we want to know now, what is it that I want to dial up and dial down? What will serve me to tune up or tune down so that I can be the most effective person I can? I can look after myself, so I can take good self-care. I can have good relationships. I can achieve my purpose, my effectiveness, my performance. And it's as if I see this page as biofeedback. What do I want to tune up? What do I want to tune down? So this is someone who I've worked with, where you can see there's a lot of high overextended reds. Now, what this would look like is someone who can be very demanding, controlling, lots of actually very high yellows as well, highly innovative, embracing change, so lots of movement. We're going this way, no, we're going that way, we're going to do it my way. And not much mediation happening on the other side. So there's not much mediation around the greens or the blues. So the cautious is low, the observing is low, the measured is low, all of the things that would give breath and calm this down. So that's why you look at the whole portrait to see the magic and to understand the experience of the person, to be able to orchestrate some good questions. So for example, if there was some high empathy or some attempt of intimate, which was listening, we'd understand the potential journey of where they're going. So having had the conversations, this leader could see the impact of this behavior. He could see the legacy he was leaving behind, the impact on his relationships, not just in his team and at work. Because of course, for a portrait of someone with these energies, they're getting results, profits are happening. Oh no, there's no problem. People are doing the work, they're here to get the job done, focus on the task, that's what we're paying them to do. And suddenly there's a new dialogue. What do you not know that you don't know? What else is possible? How present are your team? How creative and agile are your team really? What level of politicking is really going on? What level of protectionism is happening in this team? Is there trust? Are people solving problems independently? And what came out is this person, they said they can't delegate because everyone's useless. They're having working longest hours because they can only rely on themselves. People will be too scared to take action or to think because there wasn't space or trust. And when we unpacked and spoke about real impact, what was really going on, it was an amazing transformation. And he drew these arrows. I need to pull back on these overextensions. I need to dial these up. Help me. So this is really only awakening people to say, I see, I'm aware, I need to shift and change. How? And once people can see it, and then they can start moving things around, the rest is easy. They'll have the solutions once they're awakened to it. So for me, a lot of this work is about an awakening. So I'm going to shift back now to your portrait. I just want to first of all ask if there's any questions before we go on. I'll just stop the share just to see where people are at. Any questions on the chat?
Yes, I have a quick one from Jeff in Ireland. Can your persona change if you experience a major event, such as being in a fire or moving house?
Absolutely. And, you know, Isabella, I don't know if there was a big change in the beginning when you shared the shifts between your 3 portraits from 2016 to present, but sometimes we can see a kind of a flip during a traumatic event, a crisis or deep transition. And if, so in fact, there won't be time, but you must either listen or Stuart will do another talk for us on this amazing research he's done looking at the impact of COVID on personality and emotional intelligence, whereby, you know, he's proven that, you know, introversion has increased, extroversion decreased. There's lots of findings. Maybe Stuart, at this time at the end, I know if I hand over, then we'll use a focus, but I would love Stuart to share on that, and you need to read his research. But what we would recommend is that people redo their portrait when they're out of that transition and crisis. So maybe 6 months later, do the portrait again where you are more, when you've returned back to yourself to see what shift has occurred. Stuart, would you like to make any comment on that?
I think if you're willing to give me another slot, Nicole, I can share a lot on it.
Okay, yeah, there's so much to say. Absolutely, it's a too big a question and an area that Stuart is so passionate about that he knows he could speak for a long time. So thank you for holding your passion back so that we can get through this process. Thank you. All right, so we will set up a session on that because it's absolutely fascinating, and you do need to see his research. So Romy, let's make sure we can set up another webinar on the COVID research. We've just got Stuart's agreement for his time. Wonderful. So I'll share the screen again. Lauren, if questions come up, please bring them up. I'm aware we've got just 22 minutes, so Craig, we'll just have to be really brief. What we'll do is, I'm going to just, I'll make your, actually, I don't want the 2 pages here. I'm just gonna have to share it like this. I'm just going to go through a few things, Craig, and then we'll have to take this offline afterwards just because of time. But what we can see here, in fact, I'll put the annotate on just because someone was interested in how to use this for groups, and the annotate is such a powerful bar. But what we could see, if we look at, so I'm going to draw here, just a line kind of cutting across here. So if we just look at, say, the top 4, and what we can see here, the top 4, I'd call this kind of the relationship style. So in terms of relating to others. And what Craig is showing is a beautiful paradox of being highly red focused, but a lot of mediation on the green. So the first one is kind of about leadership style, leading from the front, your takes charge is there, but you've developed, so you were low underlying for intimate, but you've developed it up so that you're to a highly competent level. Remember we discussed low underlying, high every day. This is very much conscious competence, 13 to 79. Okay, so we can see that, you know, you're very much in the listening mode. Tough to accommodating is around engagement with conflict. You're happy to take it on. In tough is higher. Competitive, collaborative, you've got great paradox on both sides, highly logical. Now, if we were to look at potential areas to work on, we would possibly want to look here at this, the overextensions, because where takes charge can become controlling. The page before talks about the overextensions. You see the shift in the definition. Takes charge becomes controlling, intimate becomes passive. So the questions for you, Craig, will be, when does that happen? When may you overuse your intimate, that you're listening and listening so hard that then you hold back and don't give your view? When is your takes charge that, you know, you activate it, but there are moments where you may be controlling. So it could be that you've held back, come back, and then right, bam, it's hit a point. And then a little bit, we kind of call this kind of return to type. We are the antidote for typing. Yeah, we're a trait-based tool. But when you're high underlying, low every day, and then high overextended, kind of returning back to natural. But you are mediated still by your tough. So you're very competent at managing conflict. But something here around the overextension of that, which can become seeking conflict, which just links into this over here a little bit, which can, the argumentative can become, the logical can become argumentative. So we'd want to just look at this pattern here of these three to see when does that tend to happen. And we could do a beautiful journey to composure around that, where we walk the mat metaphorically on the system. It's very powerful to see the impact. So there's a little bit of flip-flopping from being high, using your reds and your greens well, but also overextending on them. Then the next one is about your work style. So if we look at the work style, we could see here, if I just draw a line across here, just to try and make it more simple. Again, you are your words. You're someone who can be absolutely trusted. You know, you have your goals set purposeful to adaptable. So you not only set your goals, but you know when to be adaptable as well. You're driving that up back from 37 to 51. But it's important for you to have clear goals and to stick to them. To also to have the plan in place, and then to follow the plan, and then to be your word, to deliver to your commitments. And then we look at the other side. So if we were to draw an arrow to see, okay, what could be useful to you? Now, everything here would kind of be my pre-analysis to look to activate good questions. If we had more time, we could really unpack this together. But there's a potential of activating your flexibility could release some of these overextensions. So you could use these wonderful gifts without becoming too rigid over them. There's a potential for that. But again, you know, it's all about understanding what our conversation would be around. What does this look like for you? What feedback do you receive around it? What works? What's the payoff to do this, and what's the cost? How does it serve you? When does it put you off balance? And the impact at the personal level, at the relationship level, and the productivity and performance level. And then it becomes clear what it is that you want to work on. Then the next stage would be what we call the, maybe the thinking style. Again, this fabulous thinker, a really refined mind, linking into your logic, practical, evidence-based, and cautious. Things have to be done correctly, and you don't just say it and espouse it, you do it. So you put your money where your mouth is. You're willing to do the work. You'll look at the detail, and things will be done correctly. You know, your imaginative is lower. Again, problem solving you can do, which kind of connects in with the logic. And you're also, which is really interesting, is about the embracing of change, which is quite unusual given your portrait, that you're willing to be open to change, especially important within the pandemic times where everything's changed. The ground we sit or stand on is change. And the fact that you are open to change is really powerful given your need for certainty, actually. So that's a huge gift. So that's all positive. You've got that paradox there. I'll save this so that I can send this to you. Just so the person who asked a question around the group, using this as a system, I can't go further down my page now when I'm using annotate. It actually pauses it. So what I need to do is I can take a picture of it. So it's saved. I've then got to clear all. So on your annotate, clear drawings, close that bar down, and then I'm able to move my screen. And boy, oh boy, we want to move the screen, because a really interesting summary is the bottom bit, introversion, extroversion. And what we see here is, whilst your preference is for introversion will be observing, measured, and we come to the top here, intimate. You also really activate your demonstrative. And this here is a reflection of very high emotional intelligence, because you can see here, you can both be very warm and engaging and friendly, but also very serious and professional. This is about knowing when to activate one and when to activate the other, moving between them. Okay, so you can do that very, very skillfully. So what we would do is we would look at we look at the whole portrait, we look at the patterns, and then we identify, having drawn the arrows. So from that brief conversation, Craig, if you were to draw 1 or 2 arrows, where would they lie on your page? What would you dial up or dial down that would make a difference to you?
I think I would draw a block around the imaginative block and evidence-based. Reason being is nowadays you need to, think on the spot, have that imagination to drive change and to move forward. So I'll definitely focus on that block.
So for you, that could be maybe your answer to manage some of these other areas, which is to step away from being very focused on the detail at all costs, because evidence-based becomes lost in the detail. And you're saying, lift your head up, look around you, be more imaginative, step into new possibilities. And that will create, that will have an impact maybe on your flexibility, relaxing on some of these overextensions, and going with the flow a bit more. And
Yes.
then, because you've really got the radical, so you can embrace the change, but it's kind of also bringing you some breath. It's like let's look up, let's breathe, which you do have the breath around this. It's that integration. Okay, thank you for that. So what I'm going to just show you now very briefly is the digital Spark Coach, so that you can see, and I've activated this for everybody on this project, so that you can have a go doing this yourself. So there's more on the portrait, communication preferences and things. I'll just show this. Can you see my screen, Lauren?
We can.
So this is a fantastic digital Spark Coach. It's a slightly older version. The one that you have is slightly more nuanced, but I just wanted to give you a quick demo on this just to see how it works. But basically it takes you through 4 stages. So you look at what is your key issue, you can identify that. Then you move into exploring your qualities, and it gives you a step-by-step approach so that you're guided in a way that really can make sense to you. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'll take you through this video. Okay, so now I'm going to click on Explore Your Qualities. And here you can see the qualities they show up. It's the same as the ones I've just shown you for Craig. It's a different format, which I think is actually really beautiful. And it shows all the personas. And what you see at the top here is the different patterns that we mentioned. So if I click on the patterns, you'll see on the top right, I don't know if my bar may be in the way here. I'll just move that out the way. You can see it says, what are the patterns here on the top right? So it gives you those patterns and explains to you each of those patterns. I'm just going to go back for a second. A bit quick on my okay, sorry, I'm just going to replay that. So I just want to pause it on the pattern so you can see all the patterns. So just today, because it's okay, let's see if I can click on what are your patterns on the top right. Can you see that there? It's coming. Oh, I paused it too soon. Very sensitive. Okay. Got you. Right, falls where I wanted to. So key qualities we mentioned: amplifications, low underlying, high everyday. Hidden treasure, high underlying but being suppressed, not using it in my work environment. Why? intentionally or unconsciously? Is it something I really need right now and I can tune it up? What happens if I have a low quality, like Craig's identifying his imaginative, saying, you know what, I think it's time I want to activate some of this. You don't have to. Sometimes, you know, you don't want to be jack of all trades. Someone may own that quality. You can ask for help. Who can support you on that? Overextended, if you're high on the overextended, are you in control, or is that behavior controlling you? What does that look like? What's the impact of the overextended on you at the personal level, relationship level, and also at your effectiveness level? If it's negative, you need to change it. And we have this beautiful journey to composure, which I also want to do another session just on that. And then embracing paradox, which is the richness of the whole system that Stuart's developed, that we measure both ends of the continuum independently per persona. And that gives us such richness and nuance in our conversations. So what you can do now is you can select a specific pattern per quality. So I'm going to click on amplifications. I click on conceptual. I want to have a look at that. And then it gives me specific coaching questions that I can ask for each quality per pattern. And then it gathers it all together, and we can put it into a development report. So you can identify development areas, and then you can use what we call, we use GROWS to do a goal setting module process where you integrate all the information of all your answers to your coaching questions, and then it integrates it into what's your key action, your key development goal. So this will be available for all of you, and really recommend that you use it, very nuanced in different ways. Any questions coming up, Lauren?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. Isabella first asking, what does the low, low, high pattern look like? So low underlying, low everyday, but a high overextension. What does that mean?
So what that means is it's going to be quite extreme behavior because there's no mediation. So for example, if someone's low, low, high on tough, you never see them being tough. You only see them being seeks conflict. And especially if they're high on their green qualities, it can be quite shocking. Like, where did that come from? It's out of the blue. There was no mediation. Whereas if someone is high, 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 it's more of the same. It may not work, it may not be useful, but you're not surprised by it. And there's less of an intensity to it. Any other questions?
Yes, one more from Joanne. Oh, there's actually a couple of questions still, but from Joanna, she says, what online training programs could you offer, and could in-house trainers run Lumina training?
Could in-house train? Absolutely. So we really encourage that. So sorry, just to be clear, sorry, read the question again. Is Joanna asking, can in-house people run Lumina work?
It says, what online training programs could you offer, and could in-house trainers run Lumina training? Maybe Joanna can clarify what she's asking.
I think I'm clear. In fact, I've got a couple of slides on that, because we value in-house people becoming qualified, because you've got your ears to the ground, you know what's happening in the organization, so you can then integrate Lumina Spark into your, okay, let me just share this screen here. And I'm going to just give you a quick demo of the digital Spark, because of the virtual qualification. There is much more value if people own it, I think, internally. You can be supported by the practitioners, but then you can integrate it into performance conversations, development conversations. My clients use it from induction all the way through their diversity inclusion programs, their leadership processes, their team strategy processes. It just becomes a language. They still use a lot of our external support, but they have, some of them 15, 16 people qualified in-house, so that they can use it for coaching and different means as and when they need it. So yes, I really strongly do recommend it. So this is just a quick picture of our virtual qualification. We've had the most incredible feedback from I love running the 3-day physical, but I'm now convinced that the virtual is better. People globally come together. Instead of the 3 days, it's done over a month, so people can really integrate the learning, practice it. This is just an example of one of the gamifications, just to show you. It's sorry, I can see I've saved my slides in the wrong format instead of the long screen, so it's a little bit distorted here. I've squeezed it into the portrait instead of the landscape. But anyway, it's perfect when one does it. And it's got a whole lot of online social learning. So you're working with the cohorts of your qualification, sharing ideas, applications, you know, portrait feedbacks, interpretations, and there's lots of great videos in there, pre-work. It's a very powerful system, process, so I really do recommend that.
Last question about languages for the Lumina Spark Coach. Is there a plan to record it, to build it in different languages, like Dutch, for example?
So we already, Stuart, how many languages is Spark translated into now?
I mean, the questionnaire itself is translated into like 25 different languages.
And the coach, the Lumina, Yanni's asking about the coaching product specifically. Is there a plan to translate that as well?
Do you mean the Spark Coach? Is that what you're asking?
The Spark Coach platform.
So as of today, Spark Coach is in English, Dutch, French and Slovakian. Within the next week, it will be available in Chinese, Hungarian, Polish, and then I think, yeah, then after that, in a couple of weeks after that, there's a few more to come, but those are probably the key ones, like right now. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, German as well. German's coming in the next few weeks. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they'll all become available. It's just about time. It's
just about timing. Yeah, it is quite a big task because it's a big expert system behind the screens with all the coaching tips for all the different, dependent on your traits and qualities and all the different patterns. It's a pretty big database to translate, which of course is what makes it so interesting.
Fantastic.
And Nicole, another question, the access to the digital coaching product, how do the people on the call today get access?
So we will make it available for all the people that have done their Spark portrait for this session. We're also happy to hold another session in terms of interpreting the portrait. But Stuart, do you want to just speak to it? I'll activate it on our account.
Yes, everyone on the call who is a practitioner, Nicole will make sure that's live in your system. If you go in, you'll be able to activate it right away and have a look at it. I think it would be a great topic. Nicole, if you wish to invite me back, I'll happily come and do my best to demonstrate it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So yeah, so you'll just sign in. If you're not a practitioner already, you can sign into your user account. You can see your Spark portrait will be there. You'll also see the digital Spark coach, and then you can access it. And it's I'm just taking you through it. It's very self-explanatory and intuitive. Yeah. So any other questions around applications or coaching or your own portraits? Thank you, Joanna.
Okay, thank you. Could you give us, for our guests today, examples of some online training programs that we offer based on, of course, we always will make sure that it's focused on clients' needs, we can fine tune it, but in general terms, online programs that we offer.
Yes, thank you, Joanna. So we've been exceptionally busy because the whole system of Lumina is just so perfect for virtual work, thanks to Zoom and annotation and all the other apps available. But we also use Curator and different things like that and gamification. So we've really, through Stuart's research as well, we've been able to tap into what are the core needs. And as a result of that, we offer virtual programs around leadership. So we call it Leading into the Future. 3 modules: leading self, leading others, leading business. We have a fantastic personal mastery virtual program, team communication or team connectivity, virtual, also team strategy. We have 4 parts of a resilience online program where we look at the power of action, the power of connection, power of emotion, power of mind. And that's been exceptionally relevant and powerful with fantastic impact at the moment. So we know we're making a big difference there. Our whole innovation program about co-creating the future is also very powerful. And then we've had other programs around performance, and productivity, prioritization. I'm just trying to go through the list in my mind of our great different programs. A lot around working without overextensions because people are under great stress at the moment. So I'd say those are probably some of our key flagship ones, from self, team.
If I just add on to that, and so Nicole's described the solutions, that they're all baked into a learning experience platform, so you get social learning with it, and some of it's more traditional e-learning, but more of it we like to do things where we add more value, where it's more gamified, you know, like for example the Splash app, which I'm sure Nicole's shared with you, or like the Spark Coach, which is animated and more alive. So we like to make our virtual solutions totally personalized to your psychology, and wherever possible gamify them as well. Not always, but where that will add value. And just the other thing to say, just to state the obvious, in fact the qualifications in all instruments, Nicole and myself and others have worked really hard the last 6 months to make those completely virtual and completely online, if that's people's preference, which it quite often is at this point in the world. Yeah.
No, it's I think it's very, very relevant now, and I feel very privileged to do the work that we do, because I do feel that we are creating the space for very enriching dialogues and creating space for people to open up and, you know, be present to some of the real issues, and then support them on that journey to make a difference and lead into the change that's needed for today. So it's really time for us all to kind of step up, and for leaders to step up, because we can't do it in the way we've done it in the past anymore. Any other questions? I can see we're just coming to the end now, or at the end in terms of our timing. If there is any other final questions, please do ask. Also interested around any kind of follow-up or other webinars that you would like us to deliver, whether you'd like another one around the portrait once you've done it, Journey to Composure, Stuart's research. It'd be really useful just to know what, you know, what you would like us to offer you. We want to be here in support, so it really is our complete pleasure. And I'm going to ask you, just because it's so powerful for us to have your feedback, would you mind going back into the menti.com as you did in the beginning, and same code 87585446, and just to give us some feedback around the value of this session for you? What are you taking away? Any comments either in the chat, so maybe longer comments in the chat would be great. What are you, I'm asking kind of a bit of a basket of questions. What do you need going forward next from us in terms of more webinars? And, you know, what is your takeaway? You know, what is it that you're taking away for yourself? And then on this kind of Menti, just how was today for you? So I'm going to go into that Menti now and just activate that.
And while we're waiting for everybody to start putting their comments, a couple of things from the chat. Firstly, I've put my email address into the chat bar for anybody that wants to connect on email, questions, comments, any requests for additional information. Please feel free to touch base with me on email. And then Nicole, quite a few people saying they would definitely be interested in Stuart's research, and even a session on Journey to Composure as well.
Okay, great. So we'll set both of those up. And Journey to Composure is my best thing ever. I think that's where a real shift happened. So the person asking the question around purpose and values and growth.
And Journey to Composure, Nicole, is one of the ones that we've just built into some online e-learning to make it available fully virtually as well. So that's pretty exciting too.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so I'm not seeing any comments coming up on menti.com. If you can go in there. Oh, coming up, thank you. Thankful, beautiful, thank you. I'm thankful too. Thankful to all of you for being here.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thanks, Nicole, for inviting me in, and great to see everyone and connect.
Thank you, Stuart.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for being willing to give your time to do a
Pleasure.
session. We'll set that up soon. So we'll be emailing everyone with that information. Fascinated by the session? That's great. Why are you fascinated? What was fascinating? Tell us. Oh, John, thanks for the hand clapping. Unmute. I want to hear your voice, please. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Yes, just I was trying to spell entrepreneurship and I can't do that, so I can't send my question until I know how to spell entrepreneurship.
E-N-T-R-E-P-E-N-E-R.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
Whatever way you pronounce it too.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a very interesting session. I have to go. Thank you. Bye bye.
Very much. Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye. Okay. Any other comments while you're wrapping up?
Just lots of people saying thank you and goodbye in the chat as well, Nicole.
Okay, great.
I'm off Menti now, so I'll just say it, Nicole, but you always put such energy and calmness and calm energy, and it's so well channeled, so it feels really infectious, and it's inspiring for me to be able to channel high energy in a really meaningful way, so thank you.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you. Was that Christina who was sharing there?
Yes, sorry, Christina.
It was Christina. Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. So pleased. Thank you. Wonderful.
If I may share, Nicole, I found it extraordinary because I must say it's quite late in the evening. It's actually night in Australia, and I've been working for many nights. And about 8 p.m. before this session, I thought I don't know how I'm going to make it. And what you've done is quite extraordinary because on one hand, you really picked up my level of energy, but on the other hand, you really brought this calm and focus. And, you know, and this is just quite an extraordinary mixture because it's combining that deep, peaceful focus with raising energy in someone who is really tired and sleep deprived. So thank you for this.
Oh, thank you. And just a deep breath in. Take one more. And I hope you don't go to bed too late and that you do get some.
Oh, I will be there in half an hour, I promise.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you,
Thank
Jan.
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I do like the session very much. What John said is this mix of calmness in the beginning and at the same time giving energy to all of us. It is fascinating, brilliant at the same time, special for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure you do the same, you and Joanna, with your groups. I feel the energy. Similar. Yeah. Okay. So Elaine, how are you doing? Where are you? What part of the world are you in at the moment? Oh, you're on mute. I'll unmute.
Sorry, I'm in Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to be in South Africa, but it's a bit tricky to get there at the moment without being put into a government quarantine. So yeah, but it's interesting actually because I redid my very quickly profile this morning, and it's come out with some different things, and I'll just have to have another look at it, and then maybe I'll come back to you and ask some questions around that.
Sure. Did you feel when you answered it, you said very quickly, did it feel true for you when you completed it?
I was kind of, not 100%. So I think, and that's really interesting to show that that's come out. I was kind of second guessing myself a bit.
So before we do a deep dive into that portrait, I'd recommend that you go maybe do it again.
Yeah.
A deep breath, not rushing it, and just focus on the questions and make sure they're true for you.
Yeah.
Because it is sensitive. So the way that it's measured is there's 2 questions per persona, per quality. So there's 6 questions to access each construct.
Right.
But if you give 1 a 1 instead of a 5, it's going to really shift your score, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I'll have another look at that.
So maybe do it again, just a different email, or we can send you a different project.
And I've also just been sharing with a couple of people about Stuart's research that he's doing. They're fascinated by what it might throw up. So Can't
Brilliant.
wait to hear a bit more about that, Stuart.
Well, if anybody wants, if you want a research link and you've got a particular team or organization that you want to do a cohort with, if the sample size is big enough, I could do a report, on that team. Yeah,
that would be really
which
interesting.
a few organizations have just decided to do, because it's really interesting. You can find out about your actual team's view on remote working and mental health and so on.
That would be great, actually. I've got a team in mind that I think would be very interesting.
Brilliant.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Did you do that? You did that for Danielle Afriet's team?
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jobo.
Okay.
Okay, so we will say goodbye, and please be in touch, and thank you so much for your time, and wishing you all really well, and go gently.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.